every day is Groundhog Day or a video game, and you're playing the same level or you're living the same day in Groundhog Day again, like the movie again and again, only instead of the movie or a particular video game, it's kind of like D-Day, and or you're fighting a zombie apocalypse, or you're on the German side and you're fighting this invasion, only you happen to win somehow. But even you think you're going to lose because literally like the ramparts are stormed, the enemy is coming over the gates, and you and your guys are just like, and you're working with each other, and it's like, we're gonna die. And like so many times I've wanted to shout out like, there's too much, we need help, we need reinforcements, we're gonna die, we're gonna drown in meat. And I've had meat up to this level. Greetings, friends. So I've been working in a meat packing factory for the past month. It's been 5 weeks that I've been working there, since August 23rd. I'll be starting my 6th week tomorrow, Monday, September 27th, I believe. So I thought I would talk about my experience working there. This is the reason I haven't posted many videos recently, because I've been exhausted every day. So I contacted an employment agency. I told them I was interested in doing labor, because why not? And they said, well, there's a place nearby where I can do that, and it involves cutting meat. So I said, okay. So I showed up there on August 23rd, and it was a plant or a facility that processes beef. Now, I didn't think it was a slaughterhouse at the time, but I did learn later that they do slaughter the cows in the building. And our job as meat cutters, of the 15 or 16 of us, are cutting different portions of the butchered animal. These portions are often very large. They're of varying sizes, and we work in the basement of the building. The various cuts come down a chute. They go boom, 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 boom. You hear it coming down, and then it goes onto a conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt is moving at a certain pace, and you have to hook these things with your hook. They also, little hook, they give you a long hook if you need to reach an extra few feet, and bring it to your cutting board, table, station, where you have your knife. You have a small knife, a large knife. You don't really use the small knife, just the large knife. And they gave me the job of trimming or preparing a flank steak. Flank steak comes from the stomach area of the cow, and it involves removing mostly the fat, and there's like a translucent film on one side that has to be pulled off. A lot of the meat cutting jobs involve trimming fat. Some of them involve cutting through bone, where they have different guys like doing different things. Like it all looks kind of complicated to me, but now I did learn how to prepare the flank steaks, but it's intense work, and they taught, all sorts of people taught me different ways of doing it, and I ended up injuring my shoulder after 4 days from all that pulling, because the flank steak, it has this huge layer of fat on it, and there's different ways of getting that off. You can use your body, you can pull at it, but you got to be careful when you're doing this. And by 2 weeks into this, it was feeling like the knife that I was using on my meat was now a knife in my shoulder, and it was getting worse and getting worse. And people were telling me, like, oh, it's normal to have aches and pains on the job. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but this is like, obviously, I'm out of my element here. I've never done a labor job before. This is a learning experience. You really don't want to push yourself. So I told my boss, look, I can't do this flank steak thing anymore. It's just going to make it worse. And I thought that would be the end of the job. But my boss is kind of a cool guy, and he's like, well, you can work in packaging. And I said, oh, sure. So I've been working in packaging, and it's been over 2 weeks that I've been doing that. It is better. It's significantly better than doing the flank steaks. Essentially, I just have to put very different pieces of meat in a bag. Different bags, different combinations. But we're understaffed, so simple concept, simple job, but you have to think on your feet, because we're supposed to have 5 or 6 guys in the packaging section, but we usually have 4, sometimes 3, sometimes people don't show up for their final shift. a lot of these people working there are with the agency. Probably more people are probably with employment agencies than actually work for the actual company itself, the meat cutting company. They probably employ less than a third of the actual workers there, because it's labor jobs. People come and go, they do their thing. The agency is going to take a cut of the money. You're going to make less money with the agency than if you can get employed properly as a real employee for this company, with benefits, with job security, all that stuff. But that's just how it goes. It's a learning experience. Now, looking back on it now, like, were there other cuts of meat I wanted to do? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's very large cuts of meat, shoulders and all these different things, but it's involving a lot of stuff with your fingers and working things in. And like, one guy who started new, like me, he was doing like a different cut of meat, and he was saying like, oh, his thumb, you're constantly doing the same motions again and again. Like, not always the exact same motions, but you're using the same muscles again and again. And so it's also a refrigerated environment we're working in. This is just an off-the-cuff video, so it's not organized. I'm probably telling you things out of order, but it doesn't matter. It's a genuine video. It's about 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, I believe, steady temperature. Although I found that when I was doing the meat cutting, it was a warmer environment. And packaging, suddenly I had to wear extra layers, because maybe it's more in the center of the room and closer to the air vents or whatever is moving that cold air into there. So it's like significantly colder in the packaging section, even though it's all in this one big room. But often in the packaging, you work so fast that you get up and you get into a sweat. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Like, would I have wanted to do other cuts of meat? I don't know. Maybe it might have been better, but it looks like it's all pretty intense work. And when you're cutting the meat, you wear a chainmail on your forearm and your left hand. I mean, assuming you're cutting with your right hand, your left hand is the one that's exposed to the knife. So you put on one cotton glove, then you put the mesh, the chainmail over top of that. Then you put a second cotton glove over the chainmail. Then you put a rubber or latex glove on the left arm. Right hand that's cutting, that just gets a cotton glove and then the latex glove. Now, when I'm in packaging, I don't have... And by the way, also, meat cutting, they have to wear an apron or a chainmail covering their torso and your lower, below your waist. It's all covered in this sort of chainmail that's hanging in front of you. This is to protect yourself from the knife. I found that I always had to constantly sharpen my knife. I was constantly cutting through all this fat. It felt like my knife was constantly getting dull. I was constantly sharpening it. I kind of suspect that they gave me like not the best quality knife. Although I did get pretty good at it, delivering the product by the end of, really into the second week. Like they were telling me it's a good job. It's like, but the pain was getting worse, so I had to stop. But it is what it is. So that's pretty much all there is to say about you'd start at 7 in the morning. So I get up at 5:45. And then the first shift, like you're walking in there at 7 in the morning, you're putting on your chainmail, white coat goes over top of the chainmail and the layers or whatever it is you're wearing underneath to keep yourself warm. You have to wear a hairnet, hard hat, white, just like your white coat. And then you do have to wear a mask, which I didn't want to do, but it's for the job, right? Now, the thing is, I wear the mask below my nose, and a lot of people do. In fact, my boss in the meat cutting section, more than half the time, his mask is on his chin, so he's not even really wearing the mask at all. So in that sense, it's been kind of a pretty relaxed environment. Although most of the people wear the mask above their nose, and it's like, maybe do they do that because they want to, or they think they have to? I don't know. I'm not gonna raise the issue here because these people are paying me, so it's not my. But I need to breathe, so the mask has to be below my nose because I need to breathe here. I'm not breathing through my mouth, so thankfully it's gone fine. But yeah, so that you walk in there, you should be there, but at least 10 to 7, because you got to get your stuff on from the quartermaster or whoever it is that hands out the stuff. Your gloves, your synthetic stuff, and then you can go to your locker, get your other stuff. you're working with like about 30 people in that section, like 15, 16 meat cutters, like 6 packaging people, then you have the boxing people, then you have some technicians, and you have, a few managers, and you have these supervisors walking around every now and then with blue helmets. The supervisors tend to be mostly women. It's kind of odd. Yeah, and like no women actually doing the labor. That's all men. But whatever. It is what it is. So you're walking there 7 a.m. to start, and the conveyor belt's going to be running by like a few minutes after 7. There's going to be stuff coming down. These cows were probably slaughtered 2 days before. They go into refrigeration, so by the time they're quartered up and sectioned into pieces, it's probably been about 2 days since the cows have been slaughtered. Upstairs, we work in the basement. The other sections of the building are beyond my knowledge. It's not for me to know, but they obviously do a lot of other stuff up there, killing the kill floor and then all that other stuff with the big carcasses that have to be cut up. That's all different people wearing different jumpsuit colors. Like, those aren't the white coat guys. I'm like part of the white coat guys. Nothing we deal with looks like a real cow. Upstairs it would be a little different. But those guys apparently also start at 7 in the morning, so they should have the stuff coming down to us pretty fast. In the first shift, you're on your feet doing this stuff in this cold environment from 7 a.m. to 9:15. Then there's a break, 15 minutes, and you can leave the building or you can go into whatever, this other room they have now. I don't know why so many guys stay in the building. Like, I got to get out of there, get some fresh air. A lot of people have a cigarette outside or even smoke some weed outside. No supervisor seems to, because you're doing labor here, so it's not like you're operating heavy machinery. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying this is something I've observed, and you're back at 9:30, and then that's a long shift, 9:30 to 12 noon. That's a 2.5-hour shift. You're working constantly. Some days are busier than others. Right now, we're in a very busy period. It's ridiculous. We're processing about 125 to 200 sides per day, half a cow, or more, or 178 total cows. I don't know. I'm still getting used to this. I was asking a supervisor yesterday, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, it's all like today we're doing about 178 cows or sides." I feel like it was cows, and then that would be like double that in sides, because each cow is going to have about double the two pieces for each cow. You know what I'm saying? Like the cut of meat. Generally, I think that's how it works. So I don't know exactly, but we're dealing with a lot of cows here, and we have a backlog right now. So they've been asking us to come in at 6:30 instead of 7, and instead of finishing at 3:30, in the packaging we finish at 4:15, or I finished at 4:40 p.m. on Friday because it was a crazy day. The previous Friday, I'd never seen this before. We had so much meat overload surplus coming down that the conveyor belt almost broke, because there was this buildup of meat, like this mountain of meat building up, and then the secondary conveyor belt where it's going to take stuff to us, that was shut off at certain times. So the big conveyor belt was going chunk, and it was about to break, and my boss was like, "Shut it off! Turn it on! Shut it off!" Like back and forth, and it was an intense. I've never seen that before. But anyway, so then 12 noon, we have a half-hour lunch break. We're back at 12:30. We're not paid for the lunch break. We are paid for the break time. We're back at 12:30, and that shift lasts until 2 o'clock, so that's okay. Sometimes the thing is, now that you're more than halfway done the day, you can start to chill, but actually this is often when it starts to get crazier and crazier. So it's kind of funny. It's like you have more than half the day done, but actually now it's like they're really pushing because they're getting close to the end of the day. Now stuff really starts coming down in mass. Down the conveyor belt, down the chute. You can get overwhelmed. You will be overwhelmed. There's no way to constantly be in control with this because you can't predict what's coming down. And it's all going to come down en masse sometimes. It's not always going to be measured like you can deal with one piece at a time. This goes for meat cutting. This goes for packaging. It doesn't matter. This is how it is. So you got to just deal with the chaos. And the third shift might be chill, or it might be starting to get kind of crazy. But you're off. You have another break at 2 o'clock, and then 2:15 you're back in there. And the final shift is supposed to end for the meat cutters roughly 3:15, 3:20. But then these days, because of this backlog of carcasses and refrigeration that we have to get out over a 5-day period, they're having us work basically an extra hour and 15 minutes roughly per day. and not paying us overtime or anything. Just, oh, you get it. Like, is it really worth a few extra bucks? No, not really, but what can you do, right? So I've explained the shifts and when the job is. Now, I may be leaving certain things out, but there are often these overflows, and you can't control them. There's going to be more pieces coming down. And sometimes you're going to miss pieces on the conveyor belt. They're going to get past you because they might be hiding. There might be various mounds of meat, and you recognize all the different cuts, big ones, small ones, round ones. There's one that's completely round almost. I called it the brain bulb. I knew it wasn't a real brain. And then someone told me, well, that's called a sirloin tip or sirloin ball tip, but they just call it a tip. There's another one kind of rectangular they call a clod. Not quad, like C-L-O-D. Clawed, and then there's tenderloin. Tenderloin is long, like an eel. It looks kind of weird and gross, but it's very expensive meat. And then there were the weird flank steaks that I told you about, often difficult to deal with, slippery, a lot of fat around them, but very, I guess, tender meat inside. And then a whole bunch of other cuts of meat that I still don't know. I mean, I guess I should probably memorize this stuff. I did take photos of the chart of meat that they had in this trailer outside for us to use on lunch break, and they had a chart, so I guess I'll have to look at that. But right now I'm bagging sirloin ball tips and this other one called a butt top. I believe it looks kind of hexagonal or pentagonal shape. That's how I recognize it. Fairly thick. I'm using a 14 by 20 bag. That's my primary ammunition. I think of bags as like my machine gun ammunition, and every day is Groundhog Day or a video game, and you're playing the same level or you're living the same day in Groundhog Day again, like the movie again and again, only instead of the movie or a particular video game, it's kind of like D-Day, or you're fighting a zombie apocalypse, or you're on the German side and you're fighting this invasion, only you happen to win. Somehow, but even you think you're going to lose because literally like the ramparts are stormed, the enemy is coming over the gates, and you and your guys are just like, and you're working with each other, and it's like, we're going to die. And like so many times I've wanted to shout out like, there's too much. We need help. We need reinforcements. We're going to die. We're going to drown in meat. And I've had meat up to this level on my table. My table is like below me. I'm too tall for the table. It's like it's not good. The table should be a bit higher, but we're talking several feet of meat. I mean, this doesn't always happen, and to the point where like everything comes down, and no one's complaining like, oh, you've got a pile up, you're not dealing with your stuff. Like they know they're dealing with the same chaos. We can't control this stuff. But what I'm trying to say is there's so much meat all of a sudden that's like I don't even have space on my table to bag this. Or in the same case when you're cutting meat, you get all that refuse, all that fat you're trimming off. You have to take that refuse and put it on the upper conveyor belt to get rid of that, or shove it back onto the main conveyor belt. And they sort all this stuff. A lot of it goes into chuck or becomes cat food or whatever. They bag it. They don't even bag this refuse stuff. It's like they put it in these huge cardboard boxes at the end of the day. And they don't even put a plastic lining inside the box. It just goes into this huge cardboard box. And I worked one day in the boxing section because the guy there, he needed help, and so they commandeered me, even though it wasn't supposed to be my job. The boxing is like obviously more simple work, but that's probably like the worst job because it's a great way to injure your back. Those boxes are pretty heavy, and I don't know the proper way to lift these boxes. You need to know the proper way to lift these heavy boxes, or you can injure yourself. But I don't envy those guys' jobs. So, there are going to be these overflows. There are going to be this chaotic periods, and in packaging, like because we're understaffed, we always don't seem to have the 5 or 6 guys that we need. We're constantly thinking on our feet because someone has to cover this or do that, or there needs to be some minimal level of communication. But basically, you have to have your ammunition ready, your 14 by 20 bags, but really the 14. Some of these ball tips are so fat they don't fit in the 14-20. So I've been using 18 by 20, which is fine. But then you get a different message. Like 2 weeks ago, my boss in the packaging section, not the meat cutting boss, this is like a different boss, because this is where their two realms like kind of intersect between meat cutting and the packaging boxing investigating to make sure the product is a-okay, that side of things. So, but this second boss, he's like, oh, you know, they're using too big of a bag. You shouldn't have too much slack. But I think in retrospect, he was proven wrong, because I tried doing the 14 by 20, and that you end up squeezing these big pieces of meat into this bag, and that leads to air pockets in the bottom of the bag. And then see, immediately after we package it, it's supposed to go onto this machine that like seals the bag, and it's supposed to get all the air out of it. But then this machine, which was built in 1990, because they've been using it for decades, and often breaks down, and they have to fix it again and again, repair it again and again. This machine, it's like they were waiting, it wasn't working because of these air pockets in the bag, which is because the bag is too small. So eventually they realized, okay, fine, I got to use a bigger bag. That made my job a lot easier too. Now, I don't know how long I'll be working here. I'm amazed I've even worked here this long. I thought it was only I thought I might last a week or 2 weeks, but I'm going to be starting my 6th week tomorrow. I'm going to have to get up at 5:15 in the morning. I don't like doing that. I've been totally exhausted. That's why I haven't had time for videos, but I will try to get back to doing my videos. I still like doing this. But, you know, it's been an adjustment process. There are fascinating aspects of working here. I do like the people. I like the spirit of it all. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I'm kind of ambiguous about the whole ownership and how they just like pump out all this meat and all this product as fast as possible. They just want to make all this money on our backs. It's been interesting to be exposed to the union environment. There have been union people canvassing outside the factory fairly consistently. They've had a vote, which has even raised our wages slightly, not too much. You know, we're not making very much doing this, but they did raise. So, you know, but I don't know what to think about the unions. I've had cynical experience with them in the past, but they're making more money because of them. So. So it's a lot of Jamaicans working there, a lot of, you know, it's very diverse. There's a Latino contingent, so I hear Spanish, but I hear probably Jamaicans are the most large segment of the laborers. And there are some East Asian people. There's a number of white guys. Like my boss in the meat cutting section was a white guy. The boss in the packaging boxing section, he's kind of white, but he speaks Spanish. So I'm wondering is he from Argentina, because Argentina produces a lot of beef. So that might be what's going on. So there's other things I could say here, but I think you pretty much get the idea. Like my back was aching on Friday because we were working way late, and the back was aching. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to be careful here. But the upper back, it's from, you know, a lot of these pieces of meat, they're heavy, and you're getting it into the bag, and then you're heaving it onto a shelf. And I don't know of any way to do that that's not going to put some strain on my upper back. And someone was telling me, well, you can get a back support. You can get like this arch or something that you wear that like prevents that. So maybe that's something I'm going to have to look into. But yeah, either way, it's a labor job. I'm just going along with the flow to make some cash, and I've enjoyed the experience, but it is exhausting, and who knows how long I'm going to last. For all I know, 2 weeks from now, maybe I won't be working there anymore, because but if I don't mess up my body, then I'm going to keep doing it for the time being. Because I like the regular paycheck, that's kind of nice. But I gotta go to a different part of the city to collect my money, and they give you the money in cash in an envelope. Hopefully they got it right, but so far they've got all my hours right, and they gave me the correct amount of money, so that's good. I don't have any moral qualms about this, I don't find meat distasteful. Like, seeing all this meat in front of me doesn't give me a bad appetite. I would love to eat all of this stuff. Maybe they'll give us meat at some point in the future. Maybe they will. I don't know. So, I don't know. I guess there's other things I could say, but I think this video's already more than 20 minutes long. So I think that's enough for now. Hasta luego, amigos!